Pustakam. For our viewers' information, this year is going to be 75th anniversary, death anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Rather, to put it in another way, the 75th anniversary of assassination of Mahatma Gandhi. So we thought of introducing several books by the authors themselves on this particular very topic, because what we feel, as other rightly pointed out here in this foreword, the nation remembers Gandhiji's assassination as an event and not beyond it. That kind of led to a loss of common memory, nation's memory, by treating it as a mere event and not discussing the situation, developments, events, organizations, activities that led to the culmination of killing of Mahatma Gandhi, has resulted into a kind of, we may say so, degeneration that led to degeneration in Indian polity, the polity that shaped the freedom movement, that laid foundation for constitutional ethos. So this particular, otherwise we would not have been landed here in this situation where we are trying to remind the nation about the ideology and the people that killed Gandhi and how they are now and what they are doing now. As Tushar mentioned in his, with agony, mentioned in his foreword, just we read out a few lines. Intolerance has become our creed, bigotry a virtue, violence and murder our method. Killing has become acceptable and is often celebrated. We could see on various occasions the people celebrating weapons that killed people, particularly Mahatma Gandhi. And recently I came to know that there was a short film that was released on the social media that OTT platforms, celebrating Godse and his life and his basic enacting the courtroom scene with the lead role played by a prominent BJP leader from Maharashtra. Whereas would have been felt ashamed of reminding and reenacting the situation. Instead of that, we have our parliamentarians who are eulogizing, glorifying Godse and his ideology, and that is what led Tushar to mention here. Violence and murder became methods. Killing has become acceptable and is often celebrated. Hate has become institutionalized and is purposefully planted in our minds and hearts. Silence is patriotic. If you want to be patriotic, you want to be shown or seen as a patriotic person, you should better keep silent. Instead of discussing books, writing books, questioning, bringing up the facts before the nation, it's better to be silent. That has to be seen as kind of you are identifying with the nationalism or patriotism. So in this situation, we are living in India. Yesterday, I read in prestigious Hindu newspaper. Yesterday, Amit Shah, our Home Minister, visited Hyderabad, wherein, apart from his regular political campaign, he made out an important point before the nation. If the BJP comes to power in Telangana, where considerable people of population are minorities, the minorities reservation will be abandoned or eliminated from the positive affirmative actions list of the state governments. And he tried to juxtapose the reservations of SC, ST, BC with the reservations of minorities. So thereby they're trying to create a kind of wedge within the society, so that like what we have seen in Gujarat, the former prime minister mentioned it as a blot on the face of the nation. Gujarat carnage, what the international community is known as CC. In that carnage, there are a lot of stories and episodes that how people from Dalit community killed or ransacked Muslims' residences, and people from tribal community organized violent acts against the local Muslim communities. They could do this by creating this kind of wedge within the society, by identifying or establishing the other in the sociological terms. They're creating a section of people that are being seen as the others. They are not part of our Indians, whereas the fact is otherwise. So in this context, we thought at Manchi Pustakam is a small YouTube initiative by a group of people. It's a purely kind of individual enterprise by one of our friends' son. On this channel, we are trying to bring forward attention on the various important books and trying to listen from the others about the books that would be forming part of what we call alternative narration to the existing dominant narration by the ruling dispensation in today's India. So with these few words, I welcome Tushar Gandhi ji, who is the author, is kind enough to accept our request. Along with Tushar Gandhi ji, Dr. Manikwar Prasad Garu is also there as a part of panel today. For those who are not known about Tushar Gandhi ji, he is living in Mumbai. He founded Lok Seva Trust, and also he has been working as the director of the Gandhi Research Foundation, Jalgaon, based in Maharashtra. Has been writing versatile writer. He wrote several books on Gandhi and Kasturiba and his Gandhi's activism. Recently, he brought out one more book on Kasturiba, I believe, and I hope Tushar ji will give another chance to us, our viewers, to listen about that book also. And Dr. Manikwar Prasad Garu is the former Minister Education, Minister of Rural Development in United Government of Andhra Pradesh, and now has been elected a representative from the upper house of the state of Vidhana Parishad, that's what we call. And he is a noted Gandhian activist. Apart from his political career, he is a voracious reader, and he started to translate some of the best books on Gandhi and of Gandhi into Telugu, so that the Telugu community gets acquainted with what Gandhi's contribution to India. Gandhi, Telugu Nata, Gandhi Bhata. That is what under the path, the place where Gandhi walked. That is the idea of his whole work. With these few words, I welcome both the speakers. Tusharji, now you can commence your presentation.
Thank you very much. It's a very honor to be present. We're invited to speak on this channel and to your viewers of this channel. So thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to not only speak about my book. My book is an important document in understanding the conspiracy behind the murder of Bapu and the real forces behind the murder of Bapu. But the more important aspect of my book is the fact that we are once again guilty of repeating the history of the period between 1946 to 1948, which led to the division of our beloved motherland, and immense human tragedy which we have had to live with in these past so many decades, even since independence, when 75 years have gone by. And so that is very important to.
Sir, you have to be a little louder for better clarity of your.
Sure. I'll try and be as loud as I can. I hope you can hear me. You see, because my laptop couldn't connect. I'm connecting through another laptop, and so the settings are a bit difficult for me. I hope I'll come close to the computer, so maybe my voice is much better that way. So what I was saying was we must become aware of the fact that unfortunately present day India seems to be drifting in the same direction as the India from 1946 to 1948. And we seem to be committing the same kind of mistakes and doing the same, repeating the same events of history. And unfortunately, if we do not understand this and realize this, we will be, we'll have to live the tragedies of the past once again. And the last time, under those circumstances, our nation was divided. Now, maybe it will be fragmentized, and the idea that has been India for the past 75 years may not survive. And so it becomes very important to refresh the memories of the mistakes that we had committed in history and that we are committing today. And so that makes my book much more important today for people to read and understand. Yes, it documents and chronicles the conspiracy of the murder. It introduces one to the proponents, the culprits, the accused, the organizations they belong to, their inspiration, their idols. It goes into a lot of details. But those are all historic details, important because we are living through what we now fancily call the post-truth age, where maybe we are trying to tell us that truth no longer is important. And if that is what post-truth age means, then we have to reiterate the truth as many times as necessary, because then there is a danger of truth being replaced by lies. And if that happens, then there is no hope left for our future. And so these kind of books become important. But I would like to go back to draw parallels between what happened in that period, 46 to 48, and what is happening today since 2002 onwards in our nation, or 1992 onwards in our nation. People must be shown the parallels that are happening. Since I'm speaking, I believe, to largely an audience from Telangana, I would also like to show and illustrate the fact that how we have normalized violence as part of our day-to-day lives. I was just a few days back, I read a very shocking story of how a Dalit boy who committed the sin, if it can at all be called sin, of falling in love with a Muslim girl and paid the ultimate price of being killed for love. A society which is not horrified by such a beastly and horrible act needs to question itself. Are we Humans? Are we human beings? Even animals do not kill for such frivolous reasons. If they kill, it is because their life is threatened, or they kill the prey that is their natural food for their own survival. They don't kill because they get angry with another animal. They don't kill because they feel insulted by another animal. The only creation of God which does this, justifies it, and expects others to accept the act is human beings. And a society which keeps quiet at such an act, which is an illegal act, where there might be a legal process by which the culprits might be punished. It is not enough. Society has to send out a signal that such behavior will not be accepted by society. It will not be tolerated. When we keep silent when such things happen, our silence is our acceptance, acknowledgement, and reaffirmation that yes, such things are acceptable, they must be done. A society with this mentality is sowing the seeds of its own destruction. And so the other message that my book conveys is the result of hate, prejudice, and the belief of in hierarchies, that we are meant to be divided according to statuses, and each one should be confined to the position that they are condemned to. If we accept that ideology, then unity and justice and equality are meaningless. All words enshrined in our constitution, the identity of our nation. Just think of it, how many contradictions. We call ourselves a nation. We have a constitution which is the only being, because the constitution is just not merely a document. It is the soul of our democracy, the identity of us as a nation. And if our actions are going to contradict the very essence of that constitution, what sanctity remains of that document, of that identity, of that soul of our nation? Think of all these things. And that is what is the underlying message of my book. I wanted to draw parallels, and so I'm going to draw parallels between Gandhi's murder, the conspiracy, and how the sequence was built up, and why people like me believe that Nathuram Godse was merely a murderer, a tool used by an ideology, used by an organization, used by a group of people who believe in violence, who believe in murder as a political tool. And why? And how efficiently they used it, so that at the end, they would be blameless, how they would escape the blame for the act that happened on their command. That is the conspiracy. That is where today they are dominant in our society, where politically that ideology has been given acceptance and credibility. And that is where we need to understand that aspect of the conspiracy of Gandhi's murder. With Gandhi's murder, that event saved India from sliding into insanity and destroying itself. Because we were sliding into that self-destructive slide of hate at that time. If you read the history from 46 to 48, beyond independence, before and beyond independence, you will see that there was a inferno of hate engulfing India. And it felt as if nothing would save us. But the shock of Gandhi's murder shook us back to sanity and saved us. And saved us for at least 60 of the 75 years. Before, once again, we started plunging into the depths of insanity. And today, we are seeing the fruits of it. Look at how hate is systematically being infused into our society in political speeches, in social speeches, in religious events, so-called religious events. I don't know whether there is any religious sanctity in those events where hate is preached, where violence is preached, where murder is promoted. In these speeches, in very carefully modulated and conducted speeches of our so-called leaders, senior members of our government, how cleverly they induce ideas that are separatist within our heads, dividing castes, dividing communities, dividing regionalities, dividing all of us, dividing Indians. But don't forget that what they are doing systematically is dividing Indians. And when you start dividing Indians, that is the greatest anti-national act one can do. But they get away with being self-professed patriots. And we are the idiots who fall prey to their mechanizations because we don't understand it, because we have stopped studying history, understanding history for ourselves. And so let's take up the time from 1946 onwards, when the Muslim League, in their ambition for Pakistan, announced the Direct Action Day. Action to achieve Pakistan. And they said, we don't subscribe to non-violence. We will use every tool at our disposal to gain our objective of a homeland for Muslims. And so, August 1946, they unleashed a reign of terror in Calcutta and in Bengal. It is known as the Great Calcutta Massacre. That resulted in a Hindu backlash, which can everybody else be muted, please, because when somebody else gets their speakers on, I get distracted. So please, admin, please mute everybody else. I'm sorry to insist on that because it breaks the my chain of events and the link of my speech. Thank you very much. Give them an opportunity later to ask questions, but please mute everybody while I'm speaking. So that triggered a backlash from fanatical Hindus who got into the act and justified their violence as reciprocal action to the violence of the Muslims. And the killing went on. And who died? Who was killed? People who were innocent on both sides. The Hindus who were killed in Calcutta did not subscribe to the hate rhetoric. They were innocent people just living in a city and trying to make a life for themselves and their families. They were killed. In the reciprocal violence, Muslims who had nothing to do with the great Calcutta killing were targeted and killed. Not the ones who had gone on the rampage, not the ones who had actually murdered Hindus in the violence previously. Innocent Muslims, some of them who may have even saved their Hindu neighbors who were murdered. It always happens that way. The victims are never the ones who go on the warpath. They are the ones who are trying to just lead their lives, keep their families safe, earn for their families. Then the Muslims of East Bengal, where they were in a majority, decided that they would take revenge for the Kolkata killings of their brothers. And so they targeted the minority Hindu community in remote districts of East Bengal. And the worst violence was seen in the districts of Noakhali and Tipera, where isolated small communities of Hindus were targeted by Muslim mobs and massacred. There were forced conversions, abductions of women. All this happened, and it's not as if just the Muslims indulge in all that. Hindus also, Hindu mobs also indulged in these actions. And so this chain of events continued. Then to take revenge for the incidents in Noakhali and Tipera, Bihar erupted. And in Bihar, the minority Muslim community was targeted. And isolated hamlets of Muslims were attacked and ravaged, burned, and its residents massacred mercilessly. And the inferno raged on and on and on, unabated across almost the entire north of India, from east to west. And it felt as if it was going to consume the whole of India. It also finally forced, when partition was accepted, it forced one of the worst human migration of our times, where the exchange of population took place. We like to call it exchange of population. There was no exchange. Signifies a organized, exchange of people where everything is controlled and done in a proper manner. I think there was nothing controlled. There was nothing proper about it. People were just fleeing in terror from places which had been their homes for centuries, because now they felt insecure in those surroundings. And from both sides, Muslims were fleeing the Hindu-dominated areas, Hindus were fleeing the Muslim-dominated areas, both suffering the same plight of a bleak future to the place they were forced to flee to. So who once again was paying the biggest price? It was the ordinary human beings. It wasn't the elite. The elite knew what was coming. They were prepared for it. Most of them managed to secure their goods, their wealth, even their properties. They sold off in time. And in a very organized manner, they and their families shifted to the new dominions of that time. Who suffered? The poor. Who suffers today? The poor, the weak, the voiceless. They are the victims. They are the cannon fodder. The politicians don't mind. They don't acknowledge them. The only time they want their support is at election time. The rest of the time, they are expendable, consumable, cannon fodder. It continues the world over. It continues the same way. Now look at the events today, the hate speeches, the continuous litany of hate targeting communities, targeting castes in the midst of our society. Every festival today is marked by hate rather than by piety and celebration. At every festival, we are now being forced to do things to show how much more religious we are. Festivals have become like showing off opportunities and threatening opportunities, doing things which would feel like provocations by others, threats to others. Where is the celebration? Where is the festival? There was a time when everybody came together, despite their religious beliefs, despite their religious practices, despite their religious affiliations, to celebrate each other's festivals, rituals, traditions. I grew up in that society. Where is that gone? Look what is being done under the name of these so-called dharma sansads, where these so-called saints spew rabid hatred, and we listen to it rapt, thinking that that is what God wants us to do. The same thing was happening in 1948. Hate was being preached, violence was being encouraged, murder was planned. I'll come to the Gandhi murder. There was a whole sequence, and that is where you must understand, you must know that sequence and the pattern to know that finally Nathuram Godse was merely a hitman sent to conduct that deed. It was a very planned, meticulously planned operation in a military kind of manner. And only a militant organization could be that efficient, that systematic, that regimented. Bapu, wherever he went, used to conduct prayers every morning. The morning prayers generally were private, but the evening prayers used to be public, which there would be prayers and then he would speak to the audience. And so people used to be attracted to come to hear Gandhi speak, his message for the day. But it would be preceded by what he called his Ashram Prayers, which included Sarva Dharma Prarthana, prayers from all religions, all religious practices, all ideologies, all beliefs. Every religion was given a place in that prayer. There were Hindu prayers, there were Muslim prayers, there were Christian prayers, there were Buddhist prayers, there were Parsi, Sarthostri prayers, there was prayers from the Jain sect. Every belief, every practice, there were prayers from Sikhism. Every practice, Jewish prayers, nothing was left out. Every prayer, every belief was given equal importance. The message that was going out was, we may pray differently, but our prayers are aimed at achieving the same goal of salvation. The prayer, the message of the prayer is salvation from this chain of birth, life, death, and rebirth. All religions, basic message is that. And so the Sarva Dharma Prarthana was targeted. And it started sometime in 46, when demonstrations and protests were held as soon as prayers from Islam were chanted. Prayers from the Quran, the verses of the Quran were chanted at Gandhi's prayers. It started merely as sloganeering. You read news these days. Hate campaigns also start in a similar manner. It started merely as sloganeering, saying that stop these prayers from Muslim, the Quran and Islam. We don't like it because these were the same prayers chanted by the mobs who were terrorizing us, killing us. But if Muslim mobs were chanting Allah Akbar and verses from the Quran were forced to be chanted by Hindus to convert them into Islam, then the Hindu mobs were also chanting the militant slogans of Hinduism, just like today. The Azan is being countered by Hanuman Chalisa. And everybody thinks it's such a great religious act. It affirms our allegiance to our religion. Do we even understand the meaning of these things? The same thing, the same methodology was being used at that time also. That, see, we don't object to Gandhi. We're just objecting to his chanting of Muslim prayers because we have suffered at the hands of Muslims. Yes, many had suffered. But when someone suffers, isn't it our duty to help in healing? Or is it our duty to keep that wound alive and let it fester till one day it threatens the very existence of the wounded person? What is more important to do? What is humane to do? Think of that. And these protests were continuously being aggressive, more and more aggressive. As time went by, they became more and more angry and aggressive. You read the history. You don't believe me. Read the history. And you will come across this chain of events. There are even recordings because post-independence, post-47, August, the All India Radio used to record all the prayer meetings of Bapu, the evening prayer meetings and his speeches. And in many of them, you will hear the protest and the anger and the vehemency of that protest. Every time the prayers from Quran would start to be chanted. It became so aggressive and angry that it threatened to turn violent. There is this chronology and progression of those protests. You'll wonder why I am emphasizing on this. When I conclude, you will realize what I'm saying, and I'm coming to that now. There were several attempts to murder Bapu. The biggest justification for his murder is that he agreed to partition. He was favoring the Muslims. He gave Pakistan 55 crores. And that's why, as patriots, we had to kill this traitor amongst us, traitor to the religion, traitor to our nation, this danger to our nation, to our existence. And so, even though we did not want to murder him, he forced us to murder. But if these were to be taken as the real reasons for Bapu's murder, then these reasons would be given to, or these actions would have happened only in the last 6 months of his life. Because partition happened post, maybe we accepted partition earlier, but it came into effect at the minute that we got independent, not before that. If he protected Muslims, it was only when the rioting started, not before that. If he gave or forced, as they say, the Indian government to pay the 55 crores to Pakistan, it only happened in the last month of his life. Why was there an attempt on his life as early as 1934, when even Jinnah had not thought about Pakistan? What was the reason there? That a hand grenade was thrown on his motor car in Pune in 1934. We must ask these questions when these neo-historians come and try to tell us the new history according to them. Ask them these questions. What was the reason on the attempt of Gandhi's life in 1934? And before 1947, there were why were there 5 more recorded attempts on Gandhi's life? What was the reason then? Because the last 2 attempts, the one that failed on 20th and the one that succeeded on 30th January, were the only 2 attempts that were after all the excuses that the murderers use today to justify Godse's action and Gandhi's murder. What about the 5 attempts previously? Ask those questions. But coming back to this thread of the protests at the prayers, it was popularized that refugees who had suffered at the hands of Muslims were being angered by the prayers of Islam that Gandhi insisted on chanting in his prayers. And that's why they were protesting. And their anger was growing. And maybe one day it will turn into insanity. That was the propaganda being carried out in the background of these protests, becoming more and more and more angry and aggressive and violent. One of those protests, Nathuram Godse and his main accomplice, Narayan Apte, boasted about leading when they went back to Pakistan in August or sometime post-August 47. They were visiting Delhi with Savarkar. And when they went back to Pakistan, they boasted about how they had led a very aggressive mob at Gandhi's prayers and how they forced Gandhi to flee the prayers because Bapu was removed from the prayers when this mob tried to lynch him at the prayer time by volunteers of the Sevadal who were facilitating the meetings and things. When Nathuram Godse and Apte went back to Pune, they boasted that, you see, we were so effective. We terrorized Gandhi, he was scared and he fled away from our protests. It's recorded. It's nothing that I'm saying. After one of the failed attempts, while Bapu was on his way to Pune, Bapu, in his humorous manner, issued a statement saying, I don't know why these people want to kill me so often and have attempted so often and failed. I want to tell them that I'm not going to die that easy. I'm going to live for 125 years. And I'm very sure that I'll do that. So they should stop in their attempts. They're wasting their efforts. A few days later, at a public meeting conducted by the Hindu Mahasabha in Pune, Nathuram Godse got up onto the dais and responded. Gandhi says that he's going to live for 125 years. But who's going to let him live that long? This is also recorded. The statement is also recorded. This is nothing that I'm saying over here. You cannot find in official records, not merely what Tushar Gandhi says. And try and find it. You will know the truth about it. And you will see the difference that when we speak and we make allegations and accusations, there is proof behind it. And when the Sanghis make accusations and allege things and give you new history, ask them for sustaining proof. And the only excuse they will make is, these partial people have written the history. So unfortunately, our history, there is no record. That's not the truth. It's fact. The fact is that what they are saying has no factual evidence to back it up. So they rely on the loudness of their lights to convince people. And so these protests progressed. Now come to the event of 20th January 1930. The accused in the Gandhi murder had assembled, all of them had assembled in Delhi. They had met their patron before leaving for Delhi. They had met their patron Savarkar in Mumbai and taken his blessings for this final act. And he had blessed them saying, be successful. And after congregating in Delhi, look at the event as it was planned. The attack was to happen at the prayer meeting. The man who would be identified as the killer was going to be a refugee, a Hindu refugee from Pakistan, Madan Lal Pahwa, who would explode the bombs at the prayer meeting, close to where Gandhi was sitting, to create panic and confusion in the prayer meeting. Now remember the sequence of protests at the prayer meetings. Remember that. And now listen to the events as they are unfolding on the 20th. When were the bombs to be exploded? As soon as the prayers from the Quran, the verses of the Quran were began to be chanted at the meeting. Madan Lal was supposed to explode the bombs. Taking advantage of the panic and the confusion that the bomb explosions would induce in the people who had come for the meeting, Badge, a mercenary from Pune, an arms dealer, was to take a shot at Bapu from behind him, hiding in the room of a servant's quarter which was behind Bapu. The rest of the gang, Nathuram Godse, Apte, Karkare, Godse's brother, they were all going to escape. Badge's servant, Shankar Kishtaya, a very poor Telugu boy, working as a servant for Badge, was the other guy who would get caught because he was to take a shot at Bapu to ensure that Bapu was killed. But Badge realized that everyone else had an avenue of escape prepared for themselves, except Madan Lal and himself and Kishtaya. They were the only ones who would be caught red-handed. And so at the last minute, he decided not to do what he was assigned to do. And he took the weapons away from Shankar Kishtaya without the knowledge of Nathuram and Apte and Karkare. And Madan Lal exploded the bomb as he was instructed. Unfortunately, what happened was that day the public address system had failed. And so the schedule of the prayers had gone haywire. And instead of the bomb exploding when the prayers of the Quran were chanted, the bomb exploded when Bapu was making his speech. So the timing went haywire. But just imagine that if a Hindu refugee who had been forced to flee his birthplace in what was now Pakistan was caught after the bomb explosion, after which Bapu was murdered, then the connection would be, yes, these refugees have been protesting for the past almost a year. And finally, because Gandhi didn't change, their anger turned into insanity and they murdered. And everybody else would go scot-free. You see, because we don't analyze history, we do not study history, we do not see these threads that go through historical events. And that is what we must study, and that is what my book talks about. Now look at today what is happening. Right from the time the Babri Masjid was destroyed, see the chain of hatred that has progressively become more and more rampantly dominant in our society. Till today, where a mob that lynches a poor man on the suspicion of him slaughtering a cow or him or her eating beef, the entire society keeps quiet, and their silence lends support to the beastly actions of these monsters. Remember one thing, we don't have a Gandhi to protect us anymore, to shock us back into sanity with his own sacrifice, the sacrifice of his life. If at all, we have to save ourselves, and in saving ourselves, save our nation. Because a nation is the unity of many individuals. So first the individual needs to be saved, and then collectively the nation will be saved. And that is the importance of books like Let's Kill Gandhi and the time today. Because if we read it and if we decipher the parallels between what is happening today and what happened then and the result of those incidents, maybe that will save us. And so once again, I would like to thank the organizers for this opportunity to share my thoughts, and would love to request the viewers that if what I have said interests you, please do read the book. Please do read the book, because it's very essential. It's very important. Because the same players, okay, we don't have the Muslim League to create trouble and help the agenda. But then we have every day a new outfit mushrooms to conduct the campaign. And don't get distracted. Those are not singular events. These are all very cleverly orchestrated, planned, and executed events, controlled centrally, efficiently. Unfortunately, they are now even supported by governments, by their inaction. Both the government at the center and many governments in the state. They do not take action against hate crimes. They do not take action against hate speeches because they themselves are not loyal to an ideology. They don't know that for the sake of power, they will align with which ideology tomorrow. And so they keep their avenues open. And who pays the price? People like us. People just trying to live an honest life, a secure life, a safe life in society. We become the victims. Unfortunately for us today, we don't have heroes and villains anymore. We have chameleons who keep changing colors, whom we believe are our leaders. Recognize that also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You rightly said whenever something is happening, which is against the ethos of the nation, against the basic principles of peace and security and solidarity, if we are keeping silent, that means we are inadvertently making ourselves party to that wrongdoing. And now, in the end, apart from various other things about reading history, how to read history, how to connect the threads to bring out the fact behind the event, series of events, as taking Mahatma Gandhi's assassination, an example. You also brought to the notice of today's happenings, particularly of hate crimes. perhaps we may call it Mahatma Gandhi's assassination as the first hate crime in the country during the independent free India. So thank you very much, sir. I hope this discussion will encourage some of this
questions that your viewers wish to ask, and if you allow questions, then I will take questions.
Yeah. After another speaker, then we will go for yeah. Mostly viewers are on YouTube. This is only for admin kind of controlled version. So let me check for the YouTube questions. Thank you very much, sir. This discussion will help to create some kind of interest to read your book. Now I request Manikvar Prasad Garu.
Hello, Garu, okay na?
Sir, camera turn on chestar. Yeah. As I mentioned, Manikvar Prasad Garu is right.
Sir, Namaskar, Tushar Gandhi ji. I fully agree with the speech delivered by Tushar Gandhi ji. It is 100% I am accepting. I will speak in Telugu for a few words. Andariki namaskaram. గాంధీ గారిని చంపిన విధానాన్ని గురించి, గాంధీ గారిని ఎందుకు చంపారు, వై గాంధీ వాజ్ కిల్డ్ అనే విషయాన్ని తుషార్ గాంధీ గారు చాలా చక్కగా వివరించారు. ఆ కంటెస్ట్, ఆ సినారియో, దాని బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్ మొత్తం కూడా వారు వివరించారు. ఇప్పుడు మన ముందున్న సమస్య ఏంటంటే, వాళ్ళు ఎందుకు చేశారో, ఏ ఆశయాల మేరకు వాళ్ళు గాంధీని చంపారో, ఆ ఆశయాలే మనకి ఒక పెట్టుబడి, మనకి ఒక అంటే ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ ఇండియా నిర్మించాలనుకున్న వాళ్ళకి ఒక సిద్ధాంత భూమికగా కావాలి. అది మనం ఆఫ్టర్ గాంధీస్ డెత్ నిర్మించలేకపోయాం. గాంధీ డెత్ జరిగింది. గాంధీ డెత్ ఆ రోజు 1948 జనవరి 30న జరగలేదు. దానికి ముందు చాలా ఉంది, చాలా హిస్టరీ. ఇప్పుడు తుషార్ గాంధీ గారు చెప్పారు, 1934లోనే బాంబ్ అటాక్ జరిగింది. 5 times అటాక్ లో కూడా గాంధీ గారి డెత్ మీద ఇంకొక మాట నేను సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేస్తున్నాను వారి స్పీచ్ కి, సేమ్ ఐడియాలజీ ఉన్న వాళ్ళే చేశారు. ఇంకా ఆ మాటకు వస్తే, ఇంకా మనం పూర్వానికి వెళ్తే, గాంధీ హింద్ స్వరాజ్ రాసింది కూడా, హింద్ స్వరాజ్ రాసిన ఆ లండన్ మీటింగ్ ముందు కూడా ఈ పరిస్థితి నుంచి ఆయన వ్యతిరేకించి, అంటే సావర్కర్తో ఆ రోజు మీటింగ్ తర్వాత డిఫర్ అయ్యి, వరి అయ్యి, దేశం కోసం బాధపడి, వీళ్ళు వైలెన్స్ లోకి వెళ్తున్నారు, ఒక సెక్షన్ ఆఫ్ పీపుల్ వ్యతిరేకంగా వెళ్తా ఉన్నారు, దిస్ ఈజ్ నాట్ ఇండియా విచ్ వి వాంట్ అని చెప్పి ఆయన మళ్ళీ తిరిగి సౌత్ ఆఫ్రికా వెళ్తూ హిందూ స్వరాజ్ బుక్ రాశాడు. ఆయన 10 days లో ఆ ఓడలో రాశాడు. అది కంటెస్ట్ కూడా సావర్కర్ వ్యతిరేకంగా రాసిన పుస్తకం. సావర్కర్ ఐడియాలజీని డిఫర్ అవుతూ ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ ఇండియా ఎలా ఉండాలో చూజ్ చేస్తూ ఆయన ఆ సిద్ధాంత గ్రంథాన్ని రాశాడు. సరే, లేటర్ ఆన్ అనేక అటాక్స్ జరిగాయి గాంధీ మీద. ఆ వివరాలన్నీ కూడా తుషార్ గాంధీ గారు చాలా డేట్స్, చాలా ఈవెంట్స్ చెప్పారు. ఇక్కడ మనకున్న అంశం ఏంటంటే, గాంధీ గారిని వాళ్ళు ఒక ప్లాన్ ప్రకారం, ఒక పద్ధతి ప్రకారం చంపారు. దాన్ని చంపడానికి రకరకాల కారణాలు వాళ్ళకు ఉన్నాయి. వాళ్ళు చెప్పే ప్రధానమైన అంశాలు ఏంటి? ఆయన హిందూ ముస్లిం యూనిటీని కోరుతా ఉన్నాడు. ఆయన హిందూ ప్రేయర్స్ లో, అంటే కాంగ్రెస్ మీటింగ్స్ లో ఈశ్వరల్లా తేరేనామని పలికిస్తా ఉన్నాడు. బైబిల్ని, ఖురాన్ని, భగవద్గీతని కలిపి చదువుతున్నాడు. ప్రజలందరినీ టాలరెంట్ గా ఉండండి, మీరంతా కలిసిమెలిసి ఉండాలి, భారతీయులంతా కలిసిమెలిసి ఉండాలి, మతానికి కులాలకు అతీతంగా ఉండాలని చెప్తా ఉన్నాడు. అన్టచబిలిటీ అనేది ఉండటానికి వీల్లేదు, కులం అనేది ఉండటానికి వీల్లేదు అని చెప్పి కూడా చివరిలో చెప్పాడు ఆయన. మహిళలకి ఈక్వల్ రైట్స్ ఉండాలని చెప్పాడు ఆయన. ఫెటర్నిటీ ఉండాలని చెప్పాడు ఆయన. ఈ టూ మచ్ ఇండస్ట్రియలైజేషన్ ఉండకూడదు, టూ మచ్ ఇండస్ట్రియలైజేషన్ అనేది చాలా కెలామిటీ క్రియేట్ చేస్తుంది అని చెప్పాడు. తర్వాత డిబేట్, ఆయన ప్రతిదీ డిబేట్ ద్వారా, రీజన్ ద్వారా పరిష్కారం చేసుకోవాలి, ముందుకెళ్ళాలి, డిబేట్ చేసి కొత్త అంశాలు కనుక్కోవాలి, రీజన్ ద్వారా ముందుకెళ్ళాలని చెప్పారు. డైలాగ్ ద్వారా ముందుకెళ్ళాలని చెప్పాడు. ఇవన్నీ కూడా వాళ్ళు వ్యతిరేకిస్తారు. వాళ్ళకి డైలాగ్ చేయటం ఇష్టం లేదు, దళితులకు ఈక్వల్ రైట్స్ ఉండటం ఇష్టం లేదు, మహిళలకు ఈక్వల్ రైట్స్ ఉండటం ఇష్టం లేదు, అన్ని మతాలు కలిసిమెలిసి టాలరెంట్గా ఉండటం ఇష్టం లేదు. వాళ్ళు అనుకునే దేశం ఎలాంటిదంటే, వాళ్ళు అనుకునే దేశం ఒక రిలీజన్ లేకపోతే ఒక సెక్షన్ ఆఫ్ పీపుల్ డామినెంట్గా ఉండి మిగతా వాళ్ళు సబ్సర్వెంట్గా ఉండటం అనేది వాళ్ళు కోరుకున్న దేశం. గాంధీ సనాతన్గా వెళ్ళి ఇంకా పురాతనకి వెళ్ళి భారతదేశం అంటే అందరూ అన్ని భావాలు కలిసిమెలిసి ఉండేది, అన్ని వాయిసెస్ కలిసిమెలిసి ఉండాలి, ఒక డైలాగ్ డిబేట్ చేసుకుని ముందుకెళ్ళే ఒక దేశం, ఒక టాలరెంట్ దేశాన్ని ఉండాలి, అన్ని ధర్మాలు ఒకటే, దేవుడు అనేవాడు ఒకటే, ట్రూత్ ఒకటే, ట్రూత్ ఈజ్ వన్, ట్రూత్ ఈజ్ గాడ్ అని చెప్పి ఆయన ముందుకెళ్తా ఉన్నారు. ఆ తర్వాత గొప్ప విషయం ఏంటంటే గాంధీ కనిపెట్టిన, అసలు గాంధీ గారికి ఉన్నటువంటి గొప్ప ధైర్యం బహుశా ఇండియన్ హిస్టరీలో ఏ సైంట్ ఏ ప్రాఫిట్ కూడా చేసి ఉండడం. బహుశా ఆయన ఎంత ప్రాఫిటిక్ ఇదంటే మొత్తం ప్రజలందరినీ, మొత్తం కాంగ్రెస్ మీటింగ్ లో అంత హిందూ ఏమంటారు దాన్ని, టిపికల్ హిందూ పీపుల్ కూడా అందరి దగ్గర వాళ్ళందరి ముందు ఈశ్వరల్లా తేలనాం అనిపించాడు. అందరు దేవుడు అల్లా రహీం ఒకటే అనిపించాడు, దేవుడు అనేవాడు ఒకటే అనిపించాడు. భగవద్గీతని, బైబిల్ని, ఖురాన్ని కలిపి చదివి ప్రేయర్స్ లో ఆయన అన్ని మతాలని కలిపి చోటు, ఇవన్నీ కూడా వాళ్ళకి ఇరిటేట్ చేస్తాము. అందువల్ల ఇప్పుడు మనం ఏం చేయాలి? గాంధీని చంపేశారు, వీటన్నిటికి వ్యతిరేకంగా గాంధీని చంపేశారు. 48 నుంచి ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ ఇండియా లేకపోతే గాంధీస్ ఇండియా అని మనం ఏం కోరుకున్నాం, గాంధీస్ ఇండియా ఎలా ఉండాలి అని కోరుకుంటున్నాము. మనము ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ ఇండియాని చూస్ చేయలేకపోయాము, కన్స్ట్రక్ట్ చేయలేకపోయాము. అది ఇప్పుడు ఈరోజు వాళ్ళకి అడ్వాంటేజ్ అవుతుంది. ఆ అడ్వాంటేజ్ వల్లనే వన్ సైడ్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్ వస్తూ ఉంది, వన్ సైడ్ డిబేట్ జరుగుతూ ఉంది, పబ్లిక్ మైండ్ అంతా వన్ సైడ్ ఆక్యుపై అయింది. ఆ ఆక్యుపేషన్ ని మనం ఎప్పుడైనా బ్రేక్ చేయాలి. ఇప్పుడు తుషార్ గాంధీ గారి బుక్ ద్వారా కానీ లేకపోతే జరిగిన గాంధీ గారి డెత్ ద్వారా కానీ, గాంధీ గారు చనిపోయినప్పుడు కంటే ఈరోజు మోర్ రిలవెంట్ గాంధీ గారు అప్పుడు గాంధీ కంటే ఇప్పుడు చాలా శక్తివంతమైన గాంధీ, చాలా దేశానికి చాలా అవసరమైన గాంధీ. ముఖ్యంగా దరిద్ర నారాయణులకు, పేదవాళ్ళ కోసం గాంధీ కావాలి, మహిళల కోసం గాంధీ కావాలి, అనేక రకాల జస్టిస్, ఈక్వల్ జస్టిస్ కావాలంటే గాంధీ గారు కావాలి. అందువల్ల గాంధీ అప్పటికంటే కూడా ఇప్పుడు మోర్ రిలవెంట్ మనకు అవసరమై ఉన్నాడనే విషయాన్ని మనం గుర్తించి ఒక ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ ఇండియా, ఒక వైబ్రెంట్ ఇండియాని నిర్మించాలంటే మనం తప్పకుండా గాంధీని రీకన్స్ట్రక్ట్ చేసి ప్రజల దగ్గర తీసుకెళ్లాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంటుంది. లేకుంటే ఇప్పుడు ఆల్రెడీ మేధాపరమైన విద్యార్థులు, యువకులు, కంట్రీ అంతా కూడా ఒక ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్ తో స్పేస్ అంతా ఆక్యుపై ఉంది. ఆ స్పేస్ నుంచి ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ స్పేస్, ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ ఆర్గ్యుమెంట్ ని బిల్డప్ చేయాలంటే 75 years నెగ్లెక్ట్ చేయబడింది. 48లో గాంధీ గారు చనిపోతే 48లో ఇప్పటి వరకు గాంధీ గారు ఎందుకు చనిపోయాడు, ఏ విలువల కోసం చనిపోయాడు, ఏ దేశం కోసం చనిపోయాడు, భారతదేశం ఎలాంటి భారతదేశం కావాలనుకున్నాడు అనే విషయాన్ని మనం చెప్పలేకపోయాం. మనకు అందువల్ల గాంధీ డెత్ డే అంటే లేకపోతే గాంధీని తలుచుకోవడం అంటే జస్ట్ హిస్టరీ కాదు. గాంధీ ఈజ్ ఫ్యూచర్. గాంధీ ఫ్యూచర్ అంటే ఏంటి? ఒక యాక్షన్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఉండాలి. ఆ యాక్షన్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ అంటే ఏంటి? ప్రజల్ని సిద్ధం చేయాలి. ఏ విలువల కోసం గాంధీ గారు ఉన్నాడో ఆ యాక్షన్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ మనం తీసుకెళ్ళకపోతే, ఇప్పుడు ఆల్రెడీ పబ్లిక్ మైండ్ అంతా స్పాయిల్ అయింది. ప్రతిదీ ద్వేష భావన, ప్రతిదీ హోస్టిలిటీ క్యాంపు, ప్రతి ఒక్కరు నాకు వ్యతిరేకం అనే అభిప్రాయం ఉన్నారు. మెజారిటీ ప్రజలు మైనారిటీ చూసి భయపడే వాతావరణం మరి ఎంత చక్కగా ఆర్టికులేట్ చేశారో మనం చూస్తే అర్థమవుతుంది. ఈరోజు ఎక్కడైనా దేశంలో లేదా ప్రపంచంలో ఎక్కడైనా లేదా ఏదైనా ఎక్కడ ఏ ఇన్సిడెంట్ లోనైనా మైనారిటీస్ ఫియర్ ఉంటుంది. ఏం ఫియర్ ఉంటుంది? ఏమన్నా మమ్మల్ని మెజారిటీ ఏదైనా చేస్తారన్న భయం ఉంటుంది. కానీ భారతదేశంలో చక్కగా మైనారిటీల వలన మెజారిటీ పీపుల్కి భయం, ఆందోళన జరుగుతుంది. వాళ్ళు వచ్చి మనల్ని ఏదో చేస్తారు, వాళ్ళ జనాభా పెరిగిపోతుంది, వాళ్ళు వచ్చి మన అమ్మాయిల్ని ప్రేమిస్తారు, లేకపోతే వాళ్ళు వచ్చి ఏదో చేస్తారు, వాళ్ళు గుళ్ళను నాశనం చేస్తారు, మన దేవాలయాలని, సంస్కృతిని నాశనం చేస్తారని ప్రజలు, మెజారిటీ ప్రజలు భయపడే విధంగా వాళ్ళు చక్కగా ఆర్టికులేట్ చేసి పెట్టారు. దానికి ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ గా గాంధీ ఇప్పుడు చాలా అవసరమైంది. డైలాగ్ చేయాలి, డిబేట్ చేయాలి, ఐడియాలజీని కన్స్ట్రక్ట్ చేయాలి. గాంధీ గారి ఓన్లీ ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ ఇన్ ఇండియా అని చెప్పి నేను ఈ వేదిక ద్వారా, మంచి పుస్తకం వేదిక ద్వారా వీరయ్య గారికి, శ్రీనివాస్ గారికి, వీళ్ళందరికీ విజ్ఞప్తి చేస్తూ వన్స్ అగైన్ ఐఎమ్ వెరీ మచ్ థ్యాంక్ఫుల్ టు తుషార్ గాంధీజీ. Now we want to organize in the coming days physical program by Tushar Gandhi if he accepts our invitation. Our Amarati Institute of Social Sciences wanted to invite Tushar Gandhi ji to visit Guntur, Amaravati in Andhra Pradesh capital to conduct a meeting on Let Us Kill Gandhi book. Sir, please accept my invitation through this video conference.
Thank you.
And at the same time, I appeal to the all viewers. Now the solution is in Gandhi only. Alternative India, the vibrant India should construct on Gandhi's ashes and Gandhi's principles. That is my request. Sir, okay.
Thank you, Varaprasad garu. మీరు అన్నట్లు కార్యాచరణ ద్వారా గాంధీ విలువల్ని, గాంధీ అవగాహనని సమాజం పట్ల, రాజకీయాల పట్ల, ప్రభుత్వం పట్ల గాంధీకి ఉన్నటువంటి అభిప్రాయాలని ప్రజల దృష్టికి తీసుకెళ్ళడం కోసం మీ వంతు కృషి చేయడానికి ముందుకు వచ్చారు. మీతో పాటు ఇంకా సాటి మిత్రులందరినీ మనం కలుపుకొని ఆ దిశగా అడుగులు వేయవచ్చు. Tushar ji, except appreciations on the YouTube, there are not much questions, but I have a question, if you permit. Why everybody knows that the umbilical relation between Gandhi and Congress. Those who are in the power for the first initial 25 years or so, till the change of the first government, 77 post-emergency, the Congress was in power. Even during that time, why the government could not bring out all this information that is being brought out by you, by individuals like academicians, about the context, text and subtext of Gandhi's assassination? Do you think that the society represented by Gandhi is alienated from the state that has been brought out in the post-independent Indian government in the form of post-independent?
No, I don't think that was the real reason behind it. We must understand the fact that India in birth had suffered a great tragedy. It had to endure the vivisection of the country and the division and partition of the motherland and the transfer of populations as it has come to be known today. And those were great scars because they were on communal lines. And the leaders of that time were very learned people. They had a vision for the future and they realized that unless a healing process is conducted, these scars would cause a terminal illness for the well-being of India. And so post-independence, the first 2.5 to 3 decades of India's existence were, the importance were to heal the scars in society, to heal society in itself and bring about the unity of the two estranged communities which constituted the Indian nation idea. And so political vendetta was put on the backbench, on the slow burner, and said, we'll do now when we've punished the culprits of Gandhi's murder, let us put a stop there and let us not continue with this campaign. This trend of revisiting all the sins of the past is something that India has turned into a practice post maybe 85, 86, after the Rath Yatras of Advani, who was the first politician who understood and realized the dividends that hate would bring, political dividends that hate would accrue to him. And so without considering their effects on the Indian nation and society, he conducted a very systematic campaign of hatred. That was the first time that a political campaign of hatred was conducted in India. And ever since, successive politicians have understood the power of hate and have, for their own benefits, unleashed campaigns of hate on our society and empowered themselves, grabbed power for their own sake. If Advani used the Rath Yatra and the Ram Janmabhoomi issue, Modi capitalized on it with his pogroms of 2002 and catapulted himself from ruling Gujarat to ruling India and became accepted with that. Today, every politician with ambition is employing the same tools. We must be thankful that the founding governments and leadership that we were gifted with were mature enough not to, just imagine, the Congress could have gone after the RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha and become more and more powerful. But knowing that they were allowing this monster to live, they focused on building a nation. Knowing that these monsters could one day become a danger for their own selves, they did not mind that and continued to, in their endeavor to build a nation which everybody could be proud of. Today, Modi and his gang keep asking the question, what did Congress do in 70 years? From most of the platforms which are available to them, because the Congress government visualized it and created those platforms for these monsters to exploit. So we must understand all these things. Yes, it was necessary to state the facts. It was necessary to blame everyone who was responsible. Many a times we find an object to pin blame on and forget the background, the entire machinery in the background that makes it possible for that object to succeed in the motive. But sometimes, for the sake of the majority, it becomes inevitable to allow some of those people to escape. And that is what happened with the chief culprits of the Gandhi murder, the RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha. And that is why it was left to people like me to write books, to make people aware of the reality of that situation.
I believe proving political conspiracy is one of the toughest job in the legal arena also, because we could, as you mentioned, the key culprits have been left out. And now, even after 1992, the Babri Masjid, the demolition case, which was spectacle before the nation, in the initial days of the new television era, emergence of new television era, still we can't call the spade as a spade. There's one more question, sir.
Sure.
And I want to subscribe Tushar Gandhiji's answer.
Thank you.
I want to subscribe. I want to add some more thing.
Please do. Please.
Chapman, please.
I want to add some more things.
Okay.
Because after Gandhi's death, Sir Tushar Gandhi, please tell us, rectify me if anything wrong. After Gandhi's death, the political parties, all political activists, on the name of communists, they hated Gandhi for various reasons. He represents not working class causes. He is against poor, like that. They hated. They have not propagated Gandhi's ideals. The Congress party, which ruled the country, after Nehru, they left Gandhi. They ignored Gandhi's ideas. The all socialists, whatever they are, people, whatever they in political life, all non-Congress and non-communist, they are all against Gandhi. They are ignored Gandhi. And BJP or whatever RSS, whatever Sangh Parivar, various reasons they poisoned all public mind against Gandhi's principles. Who protected Gandhi? Who take up the Gandhi's ideals since 75 years, since after Gandhi's death? Nobody else, except academicians, except some individuals. No space, no public space is allowed Gandhi's principles, is debated Gandhi's principles. That is my complaint. For various reasons, I am not accusing. For various reasons, communists ignored, various reasons, Congress ignored, various reasons, our socialists ignored. For their own reasons, the Sangh and Sangh Parivar poisoned all public mind. Where is Gandhi? So now, at least at this juncture, the nation is suffering so many things. At least at this juncture, we should take up the Gandhi's ideals to debate, to discuss. Even I am appealing to the communists and all public activists to take up Gandhi's ideals to the public. That is my request.
True. I agree with what you said. That is the plain fact that Gandhi became too much of a weight to carry for people who don't have the strength in their spine. And by that, I don't mean physical strength. I mean the strength that morality and ethical practices brings to us. And that was lacking. And to a large extent, people like me who like to call ourselves Gandhians are also culprits because we also alienated Gandhi from the common people and sort of made them believe that no, they don't have the ability to understand Gandhi. They should leave Gandhi to intellectuals like us. And that was the reason that the Sangh could walk into that space and poison the minds at that level. Yes, I agree with what you have said, sir.
Yeah, before going to the second question, not to by a sort of reply to Manikvar Prasad Garu, we should admit that the first treatise on Gandhi as an independent communist point of view was brought out by EMS Namudripad, wherein he dealt elaborately what to take from Gandhi for the future India, what not to take from Gandhi in order to build the future India. And also since 1997 onwards, it is the Safdar Hasmi Memorial Trust who brought out a very interesting discussions and also observed the 50 years of Dandi March. And also they organized the lectures which are supposed to be not to blame, supposed to be organized by the Gandhi Navajivan Foundation. So with this
no, I am not accusing anybody else.
It is not.
We ignored Gandhi. We ignored
yes.
Gandhi.
Yes. Neither it is an accusation, Varaprasad Garu, neither it is an accusation nor it is a reply. It is a statement of fact.
Yes.
Some
individuals
Right.
like Namudripad, Sundaraya, Sundaraya Garu, the individuals they propagated their life is with Gandhi's principles. But as a whole, holistically, no political space is won the Gandhi's ideals. That is the problem.
True.
Yeah. Next question is, how should we think Gandhi as far as the social beliefs and practices related to Africans? I believe somebody is from logging in his pen name and asking about Africa. So obviously I thought from South Africa.
I believe that Gandhi now has transcended geographical regions and national borders, and he's an example for all humanity. And so wherever, his famous statement that he made in 1930, before breaking the Salt Law was, I want world sympathy in this battle of right against might. And so today, Gandhi becomes an icon and an inspiration wherever the fight for rights against mights is going on in the world today, wherever the fight for justice is going on, wherever the fight for equality and unity is going on. And so I don't see any specific role for Gandhi in Africa or in America or in Asia or anywhere else. He is an ideal for all humanity. That is what we must understand.
Yeah, one Mr. Hanuman Reddy garu wanted to ask you one more question, sir.
Sure. Sure.
Hanuman Reddy garu unmute చేసుకొని అడగండి.
He needs to unmute himself.
Yeah, he did it. He did it.
You can't hear him.
హనుమంత్ రెడ్డి గారు మీ మాట వినపట్టలేదు.
His mic doesn't seem to be working.
Could be. లేదంటే చాట్ లో రాయండి. వాయిస్ రావట్లేదు, చాట్ లో రాయండి మీ క్వశ్చన్ ఏంటో.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Okay. So from Sri Tushar Gandhi ji, I seek two clarifications and one question. The clarification is, one of the main allegations on Gandhi was he caused partition of India.
Yeah.
But as I read, in the year 1939, Savarkar proposed two-nation theory, thinking that after participation, the entire Muslim community go to another country and the remainers will be Hindus only. Automatically, Hindu nation will be formed.
Yeah.
In 1939 only, in 37 he proposed. In 1939, Jinnah accepted it, and after 40 or so, Congress passed a resolution and all that. That is whether I want a clarification on this point. And another point is, how do another clarification I got? That clarification is that after Congress rule in the beginning years of independence, there were directly or indirectly linked RSS and Hindu Mahasabha rulers. For example, Rajendra Prasad, even Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, Tilak, etc. They were the chairman of Hindu Mahasabha in their own states. That's why that may be the reason why they kept quiet or why they remained passive. That is one clarification. And another question is, how do you justify the title of the book? That's all. Thank you.
So, taking your questions one at a time, yes, it was Savarkar who publicly propounded the theory, two-nation theory, and it was Jinnah who seconded it, because both of them saw political capital to earn from propagating that theory. And so, if that theory became accepted at that time, they were the two individuals.
No, Tushar sir, unmute yourself.
So what I was saying was that yes, Savarkar was the first leader to propagate the two-nation theory based on religion, and Jinnah was the second leader to accept it and propound it further. And you must remember that both the leaders saw an opportunity for political capital if that theory became acceptable to society at that time. Savarkar fancied himself as the leader of upper caste Hindus, and Jinnah fancied himself the leader of Muslims. And the two-nation theory became subscribed by the majority in their two communities, then they would become the most powerful leaders of their time. And so that was their necessity. It wasn't as if they believed in what they were saying, but they realized the benefit to their own ambitions that those theories could bring about, and so they propounded it. We must understand that for a political leader, a politician, it's not ethics, it's not the truth, it is power that they are addicted to, and anything that brings them power is acceptable. You see very blatant examples of that in current leaders, not just the national leaders, but even regional leaders succumb to that lure to grab power. So there's nothing more to add to that. Yes, the second clarification you seek was there were Hindu sympathizers in Congress. We must realize that pre-independence Congress was a coming together of different people subscribing to different ideologies, different ideals, different political opinions, who had all come together to fight for the independence of India. And so within the Congress, there were people who subscribed to the Hindu ideology. The difference between the leaders of that time and the leaders of today is, although they subscribed to a Hindu ideology, their loyalty was towards the identity of an Indian nation, where they accepted that the Indian nation could only exist in its unity, not in its division. So this difference between the Hindu political leaders of today or the Muslim political leaders of today and political leaders in the Congress of that time who had their sympathies for the Hindu ideology must be understood also. When we name people like Babu Rajendra Prasad or Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, of course, Lokmanya Tilak was no longer on the scene, so that was a mistaken name taken. But he also subscribed to Hindu caste superiority and supremacy in his time. So yes, we must also realize that. But we must also understand that despite their belief in the caste supremacy or in the dominance of Hindus and things, they subscribed to the idea of the syncretic tradition, heritage of India, and subscribed and worked to strengthen that identity. They did not, for their political beliefs or their ideological beliefs, they did not weaken the fabric of India at that time. So that is a difference between the leaders of that time who had their Hindu sympathies, but who were more fiercely loyal to the idea of India, and the leaders of today who care two hoots about what happens to India in the pursuit of their ideological goals. So that, I think, is the clarification that I can give to your suggestion. As far as your question about the title of my book is, when I was researching the book, I went through a lot of the records of investigation post the murder and how the conspiracy was hatched and how the conspiracy evolved and all that. And at one point of time in the investigation reports, they have pinpointed the venue and roughly the date on which the principal accused met together and from which point of time the conspiracy to murder Bapu began and came into action. And while reading those things and visualizing that whole event happening, I said at one point of time, at least one of them would have suggested, let's kill Gandhi. While they were talking about what to do and what their future plans would be, at some point of time, one of them would have said, let's kill Gandhi, and the other would have maybe questioned it, debated it, or accepted it. And so I thought, it stuck in my mind, and I said, maybe, this needs to be highlighted. While I was writing the book, the working title of my book was Murder of a Mahatma. But then while I was writing it, and when I thought of this statement that one of the accused must have made to trigger the conspiracy, I started feeling that this is a title that forces people to respond to it. And I didn't want to write a book which would lie gathering dust on the shelves of a bookstore. I wanted a book that would attract readers to it and force them to try to find out what it was about. So I conducted an experiment. I created two designs, one which was like a cover with the title Murder of a Mahatma. The other was a design with the title Let's Kill Gandhi. And at that time, I had an office. So I put these two covers up on the notice board in the entry area of the office, and I could see that area. I wanted to see how the visitors would respond to those covers and those titles. And I observed that 8 out of 10 people picked up the cover design which said Let's Kill Gandhi. And very few people picked up the cover design which said Murder of the Mahatma. And so I realized that Let's Kill Gandhi is the title which will help sell more books for me. So maybe it was the Banya in me who saw the opportunity and decided that, it's a good technique to sell my book. And that's what has happened. It has gone into multiple reprints. And just this year, beginning of this year, it was reissued after 15 years of original publication. The book was reprinted and reissued. So it is still doing very well. And I believe the title has a lot to do with its success.
Thank you. Literally a marketing strategy.
It is a marketing strategy.
The point is right, what you mentioned. After putting out, investing this much of time and energy and resources and bringing out, writing a book like this, you should not be confined to the shelves of bookshops. You should reach the readers, or at least intended readers. You should create an interest. Okay, it looks like a different. It's interesting to pick a book from the stall. So obviously, that would be the thing any publisher would love to do.
Now my hope is that one fine day my book is translated and published in Telugu.
Oh, welcome, sir.
I will find a publisher.
I think Varaprasad Garu and I can take the responsibility for that.
Abridged version. It is very big version. In Telugu, it will take a lot of big version. But abridged version we will introduce.
Sure. I'll be very happy if somebody does that.
In your next visit to Amravati, we can look at the index where what to pick and what to leave.
Well, you can also think of 3 sections. The Hindi translation has been published as 3 books. They have issued the first 2 parts. The third part is under production. So one fine day, the entire book would be available, but in 3 books. So people have the choice.
That's what I mentioned in the initial remarks.
This contains at least 1,000 pages.
700 pages.
987 pages for this book.
Yes, I agree that it is very book, but every page is very important because the trial is important, the Kapoor Commission investigation is important. So I've tried to reduce the number of pages, and it becomes very difficult because there's so much information that needs to go out to the people that this is the best I could do. But yes.
Very good. I am appealing to Tushar Gandhiji. From Gandhi's family, I think Rajmohan Gandhi and Gopal Gandhi, they are 80 plus.
Yes.
You are appears to be around 60, I think.
Yes.
From Gandhi's family. So this is the right time to tour entire India and propagate this book. As a writer, you can connect the people like anything.
I have been doing this wherever I'm invited to speak post COVID and during the COVID.
Within soon after the summer. After summer, we will invite
definitely.
You,
I'm very grateful that you invited me.
There is one thing, a small difference between what we are doing, what Varaprasad Garu is suggesting. Let us schedule length and breadth of a state and fix the institutions and students or the teachers to meet.
If you
that's what I believe. That's the idea. And then
అంతే ఎస్ ఎస్
If you were
Definitely we can.
to organize a tour in Andhra, I will definitely come.
Yeah, I think we can work it out on after the academic session
Yes.
reopens, academic calendar begins.
Let me know. Let me know, and
Yeah. Thank you, Tushar Garu. It's very
thank you so much. Thank you very much.
interesting. At the end of the event, it turned out to be interesting. We thought of contacting you for long. Finally, I got your number from Sahmat office. So I directly contacted, introducing myself as Manchi Pustakam. And you are kind enough to accept our invitation, though it is a small group of people at the limited reach, but still you agreed to. We started only this YouTube venture only last year's August. And now, by now, we could reach about 6,000 subscribers to our Manchi Pustakam YouTube channel, and we have posted. Thank you, sir. We have organized about, we posted about more than 120 videos, and mostly.
Very much. My best wishes.
Thank you. Mostly of them by the others. That is the catch we are organizing, and I request as initially. I requested you. May I place once again your seek your consent to appear on our channel once again to discuss the last diary of Kasturi Maba.
It would be an honor. Please let me know when you would like to do it, and definitely I'll come and speak on that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Varaprasad Garu, thank you very much. Short notice lo cheppina.
I like to leave now. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much.